It all began in March 2017 in Munich in the greatest secrecy. Cash Investigation was invited to a meeting at the headquarters of the Süddeutsche Zeitung newspaper. The Panama Papers gang is back. Rather pleased to be reunited for this new project with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists.
Anybody here in this room, any single person, can endanger the whole project.
The success of the project lies in the absolute confidentiality of the 12-month investigation. 376 journalists from 67 countries responded to the call from the two German reporters who had already produced the Panama Papers.
If the Panama Papers showed us this much from the offshore world, I think we will now see something like this.
The two journalists received new confidential documents, again anonymously.
This project has even more potential than Panama Papers. I'm gonna call him now. He's saying why? Yes.
The leak came from three different sources. Firstly, several business registers and tax havens. Secondly, from a trust manager. And finally, Appleby, one of the largest law firms in the offshore world, specializing in well-hidden financial arrangements in islands renowned for their secrecy.
And these 10 offices actually give them quite a competitive advantage as they operate in so many different offshore levels. So what they can offer to their clients is like choose the perfect location for their needs.
Appleby offers tailor-made solutions for the wealthy, politicians, multinational companies, etc.
It feels like opening a door on the offshore that we've never seen open that big before.
Back in Paris, we needed a little time before stepping into the Matrix. The Paradise Papers. It's staggering 13.5 million documents. And for Appleby alone, 3 million documents, 1,800,000 emails, 100,000 Excel spreadsheets. To read every word of every document, 4 journalists in the team would have had to spend 7.5 years of their lives going through it all. So we had to choose. It soon became clear that buyers of private jets were among Appleby's preferred clients. There are more than 73,000 documents mentioning aircraft in the database. Financial packages, commercial proposals, and even the names of well-known companies. As we go through them, we notice 3 letters that come up very often. VAT. TVA in French. And if there's a lot of talk about that, it's because it's possible to avoid it when you buy a plane. Thanks to a few little arrangements. The Geneva Air Show. No fighter planes here. Just private jets and all the top dogs of business aviation. A top-of-the-range market reserved for a very small number of very wealthy customers. A few hundred potential buyers every year who must be seduced at all costs. We want to be seduced too. So we turn Thomas, our cameraman, into the emissary of a rich and mysterious French client who wants to buy a jet. A client who's obviously highly allergic to VAT. Thomas is an appointment with the Dassault representative.
For me, it's going to be even worse.
Well, before Thomas's difficult question, there's something we need to explain. If the plane is for business use, the buyer of a jet doesn't have to pay VAT, because the taxman reimburses him. If, on the other hand, the jet is used primarily for leisure, the buyer has to pay VAT. So the total bill can add up to about 10 million euros. That's the law. Let's listen to Thomas's difficult question.
The only complicating factor is that it's not a business jet.
Comme vous voulez dire, c'est pas un avion business, c'est-à-dire qu'il n'est pas utilisé pour le business ou
Yeah, that'd be very minor in fact. It's hard to justify using a plane for his own business.
vous avez le droit de vous acheter un avion.
No, but if you do it as a private individual, you're liable to VAT.
Oui. Il ne peut pas le faire passer au compte d'une entreprise qu'il créerait lui-même.
That's right. Anyway, you have to have a company. We'll have to declare it under a certain name. This company can be a shell. I was saying that this company can be a shell whose only asset is the plane.
Je disais que cette société, ça peut être une coquille vide dont le seul actif est l'avion.
A shell. In other words, a shell company. The gentleman from Dassault is going to give us another tip: where to register the company.
Isle of Man, possibly. You could register it in the Isle of Man. Are you familiar with the Isle of Man? We don't take care of registering the company. That's up to you. But once you tell us that such and such a company owns it, we'll take care of everything else. In any case, we'll get you the help you need.
Après tout le reste, on fera ce qu'il faut. En tout cas, on vous fera aider, ça y a aucun souci.
Très bien.
Merci, à très bientôt.
Au revoir.
Thank you, sir. See you soon. Now we need to find the company that will handle the tax arrangements.
Thank you very much. Okay.
To be honest, we didn't have long to look. All you have to do is look up on the aisles of the show. Look. It's right on the walls of the stand. EU VAT advice, European VAT advice. When it comes to registering your aircraft, there are far-flung and exotic solutions, and the Cayman Islands are on the island of Aruba. Then there's the Isle of Man in Europe. And for the Isle of Man, there's Estera. Thomas will tell the same story to its representatives. It's about a jet owner who wants to use it for his own personal use and doesn't want to pay VAT.
Possible to set up an ownership structure in the Isle of Man that was VAT registered, and we could recover or defer the VAT. So in effect, the business is entitled to pay the VAT and recover it. In a $50 million aeroplane, that's $10 million. You've got a fund for 2 million. I've done this structure so many times. It works perfectly.
Thanks to Estera, the real owner of the jet creates a shell company which becomes the official purchaser of the aircraft. The real owner will not pay VAT and will only have to lease his aircraft to the shell company when he wants to use it.
We're taking the money out of that pocket and we're putting it into this pocket, okay? And that's the business.
You can tell him we are in safe hands.
You are in safe
absolutely.
hands, yeah. Okay. Yeah, and we have got the experience to do it.
Experience and efficiency. A few days after meeting them, we received Estera's quote in the post. The total cost of setting up our shell company was £8,000 or 9,000 euros. But there are other costs. Each year we will have to pay £8,660 or 9,700 euros. Not much compared to the 10 million euros in VAT we would have had to pay for a private jet. Thanks to Estera's services, our shell company will have the appearance of a real private jet rental company. with a real fake owner, a real fake renter, and ghost directors to stamp the paperwork. And of course, an address on the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man, an offshoot of the British Empire, lost in the middle of the Irish Sea. 500 kilometers squared, seals, sheep, and 80,000 inhabitants with their own strange customs. Not to mention a small airport that's very popular with private jets. The Isle of Man, a tax haven 1 hour's flight from France. In the center of town, it's not hard to find Astera's offices. They're right in the street. Next door, a familiar name, Appleby. You've heard of them, the source of the Document League. Until 2016, Astera and Appleby were the same company.
How you doing? Fine, how you doing?
We have an appointment with these two Astera representatives.
Yeah, come on through.
The good thing about playing a businessman is that we tell it how it is.
Sign the aircraft purchase agreement to an Iron company. Very common. We do it all the time. Most manufacturers are very willing to do it simply because they know that VAT is a big consideration for clients. 20% of anything, particularly of that value, is huge. So they do it all the time.
Setting up a company in the Isle of Man to avoid VAT is not tax fraud, at least according to them.
The Isle of Man company, for all intents and purposes for customs and VAT, is regarded as being EU. So it should be. It's tried and tested. It's not a loophole or a trick or anything like that. This is business, you know. It's an accepted route. Customs in France, we've had inspections before. We've never had any problems. It's something called an intra-community supply. It's the beauty of the EU.
Ah, it's great to see Europe from up here. The Isle of Man does not belong to the European Union, but thanks to an agreement signed with the British, this tax haven has become the gateway to Europe. So an aircraft imported via the Isle of Man is considered to have been imported into the United Kingdom. In other words, into the European Union. A gateway guarded by customs officers who are not very fussy.
What are your relation with the customs? I mean, in here?
Very good relationship with customs. That's probably the biggest unique selling point of the Isle of Man.
For all that advice, we use a gentleman called who's well known in the industry. Now, he used to be a customs officer. So when we have a problem, we approach Ian, and Ian goes down there and brings them up and stuff.
Peculiarities or anything like that at all, they're happy to kind of resolve effectively. So we have a very, very good relationship.
When we leave Astera, the customs officers are at the end of the street, the red brick building. We are wisely staying outside. If the customs officers are as helpful as Astera claims, those who stash their jets here are unlikely to be bothered. While we're wandering around the city like plane buyers, other journalists from the consortium are driving to the jet center on the Isle of Man. The place to be for private planes and their very rich passengers. Luxury, calm and confidentiality. A truly welcoming place that we discover thanks to the manager.
You also offer land?
Yes, if people want to, but most of the time people don't really stay here for that long.
Well, that's a pity that they don't stay here for long because it's very comfortable.
It is, but I mean they want to go to or from their position where they were as soon as possible, obviously.
What are your clients?
Well, obviously we got a confidentiality here, so I'm not going to name any of our clients, but we've got... what group? Well, you've got the normal rich to incomprehensible rich.
At the Jet Center, they protect the identity of their customers and take care of all the formalities. It's so simple that even a kid who looks like he just stepped out of a boy band can handle it.
I want to import a plane, the plane is coming. How long does it take?
However, the aircraft can arrive on the Isle of Man when everything is in place for the arrival, and the aircraft can be back out in half an hour. The only thing we need the aircraft to be here for is for the VAT and the customs paperwork to be brought from Douglas to the airport, to be overseen by the crew or the aircraft owner, acknowledged, and then the aircraft can depart.
So many, how many
If we
planes?
say six to ten aircraft movements
per month are imported via Isle of Man.
Exactly.
970 aircraft have been registered here. That's one jet for every 80 inhabitants. Not bad for a rock battered by the winds of the Irish Sea. But who are these wealthy owners, able to brave the elements to hide their jets in this tax haven? From Appleby's listings, let's take the jet with the registration number G_LCDH. A Challenger 605 imported into Europe in January 2013. It is owned by a company based in the British Virgin Islands, called Stealth Aviation. This Stealth company leases the aircraft to another company, also called Stealth, but this time based on the Isle of Man. There, the aircraft is leased to Hangar 8. In the end, the aircraft was used by BRV in Guernsey and a certain Lewis Hamilton. British individual, Formula 1 world champion. This cascade of companies serves only one purpose: to give the illusion of a genuine commercial rental activity. The reality is much simpler. The shell companies belong to Lewis Hamilton. He is the owner of the plane. He rents it to himself. The jet cost 22 million euros. Thanks to Astera services, Lewis Hamilton saved 3.7 million euros in VAT. Yet the European rules are clear. A shell company is not entitled to recover VAT. Officially, Lewis Hamilton's jet is essential to his work. To check this, we put together a selection of photos from social networks. Here, look, he's discussing tires for the next Grand Prix with his dogs Roscoe and Bosco. Here, he's having a race strategy meeting with his son. Ah well, here's his board of directors. That's him and his mates. Oh yes, we did find a photo where he was really working with engineers, but it wasn't on the plane. With the journalists from the consortium, we sent a long letter to Lewis Hamilton. Here's what his lawyers wrote back. You should be aware that it is perfectly legal for a taxable person to choose rental over purchase as a way of reducing VAT, with the objective of obtaining a tax advantage. Getting a tax break, that's what we've been telling you all along. Let's go back to our listing. Let's take a look at the aircraft with the registration number M/Tink. Tink for Tinkov Oleg. This Russian oligarch made his fortune in beer and banking. Until last year, he even owned a cycling team.
And today, you see, can you show? I'm an world champion, Tinkov.
World champion Oleg. Between 2013 and 2016, Oleg bought 3 planes from the French company Dassault, including this one. Thanks to Appleby's documents, we can follow the various stages of the transactions. For example, the aircraft were decorated with the Tinkov family coat of arms. The paintwork was approved by Oleg himself. The same goes for crew training. Dassault deals directly with Vadim, the oligarch's right-hand man. Dear Vadim, we would like to introduce you to Madam X, who will be responsible for answering all questions related to pilot training. And it's Oleg himself who informs Dassault that the transfers have started. Let's do it. I'll pay tomorrow. But surprisingly, Oleg disappears from the sales contracts. French aircraft manufacturer Dassault sells aircraft to a shell company. The company is Stark, based at Appleby on the Isle of Man. Oleg Tinkov paid a total of 96 million euros for his 3 aircraft. According to our calculations, the Russian oligarch saved 18,800,000 euros in VAT. We would have liked to discuss this with him, but he never replied to our letters. The Dassault Group simply stated that the locations and operating regimes of the aircraft delivered were a matter for its customers to decide, and that the group had always carried out the necessary checks in accordance with the laws in force. As we delve into Appleby's secret files, one big name in raw materials stands out. Glencore. Haven't heard of Glencore? Then here's Glencore in 30 seconds. Electric cars? Glencore. Or mobile phones and tablets? Glencore. Electric cables? Glencore again. Electric bikes? Glencore again and again. I love Glencore. The group is a commodities giant. The biggest trader on the planet. One of the biggest producers. 155,000 employees worldwide. 130 billion euros in sales in 2016. Glencore supplies almost everything that comes from the ground. Copper, zinc, nickel, alloys, aluminum, coal, oil, and even agricultural products. In the Paradise Papers database, when you type in these 8 letters, you get over 34,000 responses. A colossal mass of documents. Glencore is one of Appleby's biggest clients. 1,300,000 euros in fees in Bermuda in 2016 alone. Appleby has deployed all its know-how to help the commodities giant weave an incredible web across the globe. To hide some of its contracts and cover its tracks, it has set up a myriad of offshore structures. Here's the Glencore Nebula revealed for the first time in such a comprehensive manner. The companies the group controls, the links between them. All this should have remained secret, stashed away in Appleby's cupboards. Glencore is on the confidential client list. Thanks to the documents in our possession, we are going to reveal how the multinational is getting its hands on the world's wealth, even if it means breaking the law. To find this highly discreet behemoth, you need to take the train to Switzerland and climb up the mountain pastures. On the shores of Lake Zug, the small town of Bar. This understated building is Glencore's global HQ. No outside sign of wealth. They hate attracting attention here, so when we film the facades, they take our picture. Hello, madam. That's too bad. To tell you the truth, we didn't come to Switzerland to have a photo taken, but to attend the annual general meeting of shareholders. It's taking place in this modest village hall. You know how it works. To get in, we bought a share and took along a hidden camera to film. On the podium, Ivan Glassenberg, Glencore's chief executive officer.
If you look at the numbers by 2035, if we do get this adoption and you have a large amount of electric vehicles, where that's 90% of the world's vehicles, you will have to produce another 20 million tons copper. Noting today the world only produces 23 million tons of copper. You'll have to produce another 1.8 million tons of nickel, and today we produce 2 million tons of nickel. And cobalt, these numbers are crazy, 679,000, and today the world only produces 100,000 tons of cobalt. So looking at those numbers, Glencore is the major producer of copper, nickel, and cobalt. So going forward, we will get the big benefit of the electric vehicles coming on the road in the future.
Copper, nickel, cobalt. The Swiss giant has won the trifecta. It has got its hands in the best and most productive mines. The Kolwezi region lies in the south of the Democratic Republic of Congo. When you fly over it, it's impossible to miss Glencore's two treasures: the Komodo and Mutanda mines. They contain huge deposits of copper and cobalt. And they have one special feature: they produce the purest ores in the world. Naturally, you want to get up close to these two jewels of the multinational. There is one procedure for visiting Glencore's mines. Call the head office in Switzerland. On the other end of the line, one of Glencore's global communications managers, the kind of person who wants to control everything. After a 48-hour wait, the answer came.
And would we be able to see the questions in advance and then be able to sort of choose what you could use in the final version? Would that be possible?
What, to show us the questions in advance?
Correct.
Well, I don't do that usually.
Would it be possible, after you filmed, could we, would we be able to see what you wanted to use in your final edit?
No, I never did this, ever.
I'm sure, but that's why if you don't ask in life, you don't get it.
I know, it's not the same job if I'm doing this. I would be in public relations and I would be getting more money.
No, sure, fair enough, okay. All right.
Yes, we could visit the Mutanda mine. The company sets out its conditions, listed in this email sent from Switzerland. Ask employees for their permission before filming them. That's normal. Ask them for their agreement to be interviewed. Okay. And let them do the interview again if they're not happy with their answer. Well, no. That's all. Oh yes, one detail. We'll be accompanied by this lady, Francesca Santinelli.
No, don't film me, unless I look very skinny.
Flirting? No. Instructions from the head office in Switzerland.
No. I don't want to be filmed so much.
Yeah, we are going to interview you. You are the...
I can answer questions, but no, there's not an interview.
Here you go, Francesca. Without an interview, it's going to be complicated. Especially as we can't even film from the car.
Thomas, you're naughty. That's how you get it. You're naughty.
Barely enough time to shoot these images. Miners coming on shift in the early hours of the morning. There are 3,500 miners working here. With subcontractors, the mine employs a total of 7,000 people. The first site we're finally allowed to film is this open pit.
It's quite a theater.
But the person in charge doesn't want to go on TV either.
Can we mic you for questions?
I'd rather not be recorded if that's okay.
I can take illustration shots and that's it. Yes. I can repeat whatever people are telling me, but it's far away from being anything close to television.
It doesn't matter, Edward. We'll describe the mine. This shaft is already 160 meters deep. Every day, 60,000 tons of ore are extracted, loading 700 skips. Mutanda is one of the richest mines in the world. It contains 16% of the world's cobalt reserves.
Still are the largest producer of cobalt
in the world.
In the world.
This place.
This place, yeah.
when you mine it, cobalt then goes into what use, for instance?
Lots of uses. I mean, big one, probably the headline making one at the moment is electric cars.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cobalt goes into batteries, especially. Also, there'll be quite a lot on your smartphone, probably some from here. Speaking to some of our vendors who came through, they said pretty much every iPhone in the world has cobalt from Nintendo.
Cobalt is an excellent bargain for Glencore. Its price has risen by 89% since January 2017. After the mine, the processing plant, where the cobalt and copper ores become metal. But once again, no employee wants to answer our questions.
You mind being on the camera and explaining this to us? Yeah?
No, well, I prefer not being on the camera.
Oh, you don't want either?
No.
Everybody's camera shy here, right?
Yeah, well, I am.
We were able to film only these copper plates. Glencore's red gold. At the time of filming, a ton of copper was selling for 5,200 euros in the open market. So these 16 batches of plates are worth a small fortune, 150,000 euros. Every year, 220,000 tons of copper and 24,000 tons of cobalt leave Mutanda on these trucks. According to our calculations, the mine's turnover this year will exceed 2 billion euros.
Thanks for your time.
Glencore spared no expense. To get his hands on this wealth. Close to a working-class housing estate, a gigantic outdoor well. Glencore is the flagship in this region, the Komodo mine. The multinational conquest of this mine has been the subject of a fierce battle involving money, influence, dubious intermediaries, and suspicions of corruption. In the Paradise Papers, we were given access to secret documents. Minutes of meetings of the company that owns these mines, Katanga Mining. They tell the story of how Glencore took control of Komodo and bent the Congolese state to its will. First episode. On the 23rd of June 2008, the board of directors of Katanga Minings met at the Hilton Hotel at Zurich Airport. On the agenda, bad news from the DRC. The Congolese government has decided to renegotiate all mining contracts for a higher price, even that of Katanga Minings. For the shareholders, this increase is unacceptable. So began a long struggle. On 13th October 2008, another meeting. The Congolese are now asking for $585 million to exploit the mines. In the industry, this is known as key money. Glencore and other shareholders only want to pay a quarter of this amount, $140 million. It's time to call a friend. Dan is Dan Girdler, a nefarious character. The Israeli businessman made his fortune from diamonds in the DRC. His control on the sector earned him harsh criticism in 2001 in a report on the plundering of the country's resources. Former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan condemned Girdler's dealings as a nightmare for the DRC and a disaster for the local diamond trade. But that's not stopping Dan Girdler's business. After diamonds, he's now investing in copper and cobalt mines. Gertler is an influential man, as these never-before-seen images filmed in 2006 show. At the wedding of Joseph Kabila, the President of the Republic, the billionaire was one of the guests of honor. Glencore called on this highly influential figure to negotiate with the Congolese government. Elizabeth Seasons works for an American foundation. She has access to the contracts of all the mining companies in the DRC. She talks to us about the Paradise Papers.
Ok, Elisabeth Kessens, clap première. Est-ce que vous connaissez
Do you know this man?
cet homme?
Obviously, in the mining sector, it's hard not to know this man.
His name is Dan Gertler.
Dan Gertler.
A key date was 2008, when the Congolese government asked foreign shareholders in the mines to increase their contributions in order to pay more for the mines. What were the reasons for this?
So the government has sought to recover several types of revenue, including what are known there as gate fees, the sort of bonuses that are paid to gain access to the sector.
In this case, we find Dan Gertler. We find Glencore. We are in 2008 at the time of the renegotiation of entry fees. And Glencore and Dan Gertler do not pay these entry fees that all other companies pay.
In fact, they managed to negotiate a lower fee and only pay a quarter of the key money. This bonus, unlike other companies.
Why did they do that? Did they get special treatment?
That's where the question arises. How is it that this company can pay a much lower price, especially as it has recovered some of the biggest mines in the sector, which held some of the biggest reserves? It should have paid a price of more than $500 million, but in the end it only undertook to pay $140 million.
After Dan Gertler's intervention, so the Congolese state's demands have been reduced from $585 million to $140 million, which represents a savings of $445 million. What does $445 million mean to the Congo?
You have to realize that the Congo's annual budget is £3 million.
Right, so now we're at 1/6 of the budget?
Yes, especially at the time. It wasn't over $3 billion, so when we say a saving of $445 million,
that's 1/6 of the budget?
Compared to $3 billion, it's gigantic. It exceeds the budget for health and education. It's huge.
So huge that it begs the question, what is the billionaire's middleman secret? In his business dealings in the DRC, Dan Gertler has been able to count on one man, Augustin Katumba Mwanke, the key figure in Congo's mining sector, the man who whispers in President Kabila's ear. Dan Gertler has made him an unfailing ally. In his memoirs, this is how Augustin talks about his friend Dan. Dan, my friend, my twin brother, I am proud to be the brother you never had. Touching. When Augustin fell ill, it was Dan who had him treated, at his own expense in Israel. Augustin Mwanke died in 2012. President Kabila attended his funeral. And look, who's in the front row, 2 chairs away from President Kabila? It's Dan Gertler. Dan Gertler is said to have bought his place at the heart of power. This is what a court ruling in the United States makes clear. An American company is being prosecuted for corruption, notably in the DRC. According to the investigators, it was Dan Gertler who paid the bribes.
What's this picture?
Yes, so it's an extract from these American justice documents.
So this document proves that Mr. Gertler was directly involved in corruption with President Kabila, or the AKM. Here they are Official 1 and Official 2. The sums are enormous. From November 2010 to February 2011, Dan Gertler paid $20 million to Kabila and AKM. Isn't that petty corruption?
Yes, and the document even indicates that in total, there were bribes to all the officials combined of over $100 million, including these direct payments to officials 1 and 2.
Would you say that Dan Gertler's method is corrupt?
He has denied any wrongdoing all along. He denies that he was involved in these kinds of practices. But there is a clear agreement between the multinational he used as a partner and the American justice system that these practices were used. And the American multinational agreed to pay $400 million to the American courts.
Do you think that Glencore knowingly used DG and its methods in its links with the DRC presidency?
So we can see that Glencore and Gertler have been working together for a very long time, for 10 years, and for a very good period of time. Glencore was defending itself by saying, he's a good partner with whom we should work in the DRC. He's a very good partner. We don't see the problem. But when the U.S. Justice documents came out, the language changes.
In 2016?
At the end of 2016, we suddenly became aware that there might be a problem.
We find out.
Yes, the language in the press changes, and we say we're aware of it. We'll see what we can do. And a few months later, they decided to buy out Gertler's stake in the 2 mines in which they were partners for a total of $1 billion, half of it in cash.
Basically, it took the U.S. justice system to reveal some fairly clear cases of corruption for Glencore to put an end to its corruption with Dan Gertler. And that was in 2017?
That was in 2017.
Only then.
The Swiss multinational has cut ties with Dan Gertler. But what does Glencore have to say about its relationship with its now cumbersome partner? Remember, we were invited to the annual general meeting.
The next question, please.
Hello, my name is Ed Perrin. I'm from France. Considering the legal risks and public relation problems associated with Mr. Dan Gertler, my question is quite simple. Did Glencore or its subsidiaries have ever entered into contracts in which Mr. Dan Gertler was involved personally? Thank you.
We have, as I'm sure you're aware, commercial arrangements with companies in which Mr. Gertler is involved. We have made in the past commercial loans to companies in which he has been involved. And we have had companies that he has been involved with conducting some administrative activity for us in the DRC. None of which causes us any concern. And we are not part of any of the investigations.
May I ask then what kind of a due diligence procedures your company has made?
Extensive and thorough. Next question, please.
That's it?
Extensive and thorough.
Dan Gertler and his pedigree. As smooth and clear as Lake Zuck. Since then, the consortium of journalists has sent Glencore dozens of questions. In one fine autumn morning, Glencore finally replied. A one-page press release and a single line of defense. The amount of the key money, $140 million, was negotiated before Dan Gertler's intervention, back in February 2008. But Glencore forgets to mention that after February 2008, the DRC increased its demands and asked not for $140 million, but for 4 times as much.
In Switzerland, we use the crosswalk.
the group refused all our requests for a TV interview. When that happens, you know us. We just drop in for a visit.
We're a French TV crew coming from Paris, and we would like to speak to Mr.
And your name is?
Élise Lucet. Okay, thank you very much.
A few minutes later,
Bonjour.
You're Mr. Yes, I'm Élise Lucet. I'm Élise Lucet.
Hey, how do you do?
From France 2.
I'm Edouard Perrin.
Edouard
You came to our thing in Katanga.
Yeah.
Good to meet you.
they really hate TV at Glencore.
Can you come in here?
Yeah, sure.
Can you ask your colleagues to wait outside?
Yeah, sure. They wait out. They are over there.
In the offshore world, we prefer offline conversations. This one lasts about 10 minutes. Here's a short summary of our exchanges.
We get the impression that you're trying to play down Dan Gertler's role in lowering your threshold for Katanga mining.
Send me an email.
What's happened to the Congolese demands?
I'm not gonna talk about what happened over there.
We've got questions. That's why we're here.
Send me an email with your questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Please send me an email.
We will.
And so we did. 1 week after our visit to Switzerland, Glencore replied. Finally, they admit that after February 2008, the Congolese state did indeed claim $585 million. That's all we need to know. Naturally, we sent a long list of questions to the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Joseph Kabila. A president who loves his country so much that he talks about it like this. My Congo, if you don't want to believe in me, at least believe in my work. We never got an answer. As for Dan Gertler, he told us, through his lawyers, that his relationship with President Kabila was strictly personal. That Katanga Mining had not received any preferential treatment thanks to him. That the American investigation proved nothing about him, that it was partly based on falsified elements. We wanted to end this investigation with a riddle. Number 1, I give my name to an archipelago. Number 2, I'm very popular in this archipelago. If you don't think so, come on. We'll give you a clue. Yellow, blue, red, beige. Yes, it's the Bermuda. These long underpants have become the uniform of businessmen in Bermuda. Anyone who says they're ugly will be banned from the company. On the streets that day, the only people not wearing Bermuda shorts were the journalists of the Paradise Papers Consortium. Australians, Danes, Japanese. Many of them arrived on the island for a visit to Appleby. The precious montages that we've been analyzing for months were concocted in the offices behind those smoked glass windows. It's a traffic jam as we come to collect in person the answers to the questions we've sent from all over the world. And so it's Mr. Red Bermuda Shorts that is going to receive us politely.
So unfortunately, there's no one here to talk to you right now. Thank you for your business cards. What I will do is have them reach out via email. So.
And if you like, we'll leave this with you. I suspect you've got a copy of this.
I can't take. I don't know what that is, so I can't take that.
Okay, it's just a copy of the letter we sent to Appleby.
Okay, well then they should have it then.
Okay, fair enough.
Stoic, Mr. Red Bermuda Shorts.
Thank you.
None of the 200 employees who work in the offices will bother to answer our questions. It's clear the people here don't talk much. They much prefer to write. You will therefore have to make do with this statement by email. There has been no infringement by Appleby. Your questions have no public interest. On the contrary, it is obvious that you have received a large quantity of stolen data, which belongs to Appleby. We ask you to give us copies of these documents. The Paradise Papers story has only just begun. This leak of 13.5 million documents involves intermediaries, wealthy individuals, politicians, and multinationals, all with the same goal in mind: impunity, opacity, and secrecy.